So I was just out of college when I received my first summons from the D.C. Superior Court. My heart was pounding when my roommate handed me the envelope, and when I tore it open, inside was my very own juror's badge. I'd been in town only a couple of months, and already somebody down at that courthouse was thinking of me. Maybe they'd seen my resume, how I graduated near the top of my class, or how when I visited my grandfather, we'd hang out and watch episode after episode of Law and Order from dusk to dawn. Or maybe they knew that one of my favorite films was 12 Angry Men. You know, the one with Henry Fonda where he convinces all these Luddite jurors that a boy accused of murder is in fact innocent? I was like a little Henry Fonda, you know? But of course, you know, my stupid roommate tries to pop my bubble. Dude, in D.C., you gotta go to jury duty as often as you get your car inspected. That's what happens in a high-crime, low-voter roll city. And I was like, really? Awesome! But unfortunately, getting a summons is not the same as making the jury. It's a multi-step process that I didn't survive the first few times, but I learned. First rule, cops are awesome. They are our city's finest, after all. Lawyers, they're pretty cool. Not your friends, but, you know, you don't necessarily, you're skeptical. That's important. Third, you work out in the burbs and your view of humanity is an altruistic one. People are kind. And surely enough, by the fifth time I went to jury duty, I found my rear end in that little box. And I don't know how many people I ran over getting to my seat. But when I got there, I put on my Thomas Jefferson face. Philosophical, yet indifferent, because you don't want to appear to want it that badly. And before long, the judge said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a panel." And my ass was in seat 12. I was 33 years old and finally a juror. I called everyone I knew. "Mom, Dad, I'm on a jury." "Yeah, I know you've never been on one." "Yeah, sorry, man. Can't make lunch on Wednesday. It's jury duty." "Oh, and by the way, it's murder." I strutted to the courthouse on that first day of the trial. "I'm a juror. It's murder. You know it. I'm on it." Now, through my years of television watching, I'd grown accustomed to a certain kind of jury. People who were well-dressed, who sat upright, whose eyes were always at maximum aperture, soaking it all in. My jury box, though, was a little bit different. Heads bobbed in waves of sleep, and others lounged in T-shirts as if poolside. I felt like I was in a scene from My Cousin Vinny. And I looked at the poor defendant, and his eyes were puppy dog big behind his glasses. And I wondered, could this little guy hunched over in that oversized suit really have done it? You see, he was accused of killing a man in an apartment parking lot after an argument. And of course, his lawyer's like, no, he's a mentor, a pillar of the community. But in the jury room, the foreman tried to set me straight. "Let me tell you something about the hood." And I'm like, oh, hold it. I've seen The Wire. I know all about the hood. "A mentor," he said, "is a drug dealer trying to buy the silence of the community with free barbecues and pony rides. Got it?" And I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's kind of like Prop Joe, you know, the East Side Kingpin in The Wire. In season 1, he threw a basketball tournament. So like, yeah, Mr. Street Dictionary, I got it. But on the next morning, I came into court to see this woman sitting in the witness stand, and she had this big stack of papers in front of her. And similar documentation seemed to be in front of the lawyers and the judge. And the judge said, "Ladies and gentlemen, since we cannot find the witness, Ms. Johnson, we are going to read from her prior testimony." And it was as though the clerk who was playing Ms. Johnson was serving as some kind of medium through which Ms. Johnson's ghost spoke. I might have been high, I don't remember. But I heard him say, "I'ma kill you." And when he came back later that night, I looked through my window blinds and saw him shoot the man dead. The trance ended. The clerk repossessed, moved off the stand, and the prosecution rested. I looked at my fellow jurors and was like, that's it? Because I had seen the vapor witness scenario on television multiple times, but something made me swallow hard, because if I believed this woman's testimony, then I had to vote to convict this man of murder. I wanted to see the real Ms. Johnson. Was she twitchy from years of drug abuse? Did she have a weird tic? Like, did she rub her nose or tap her foot a little too often? But all we had were her words. And I wondered what Henry Fonda would have done. Would he, like Hamlet, believe the testimony of a ghost? And then it occurred to me kind of what the difference between TV trials and real trials is. On TV, the truth is predetermined, right? But in reality, we had to figure out what the truth was. It was dramatic, absolutely, but it definitely was not entertainment. Now, the next day we started deliberations and we voted first thing, 11 guilty. And I said, I just want to go over the evidence one more time. And so I was looking at this enlarged photo, and I traced my finger from the window of Ms. Johnson's apartment over to the parking lot where the crime occurred. And the foreman said, "Have you ever been afraid?" And if he had stopped there, I would have been like, sure, lots of times. And I would have gone down my list. But he continued, "Have you ever been afraid to leave your home?" "That's right," said a juror, and another, and then another. They were talking about Ms. Johnson. And no, I'd never been afraid to leave my home. The foreman put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "Son, I think he did it." And I nodded in reply. When we were called back into the courtroom, the judge wanted to know, did we agree with the verdict? And I watched the defendant's eyes dart from juror to juror as we said yes, yes, yes. And when they got to me, our eyes met for the first time during this entire trial. And what I saw were leaden, black discs like those of a great white shark. And a chill went down my spine. "Yes," I said. "Guilty." I spent the next few days kind of looking over my shoulder. For some crazy reason, I thought maybe the defendant or one of his guys might have been looking for me. It was the smallest taste of what Ms. Johnson might have felt living in her neighborhood every single day. And the next time I was called to jury duty, 2 years later, I told them that I hated cops. That lawyers were clever geniuses, and that human beings were scum. To hell with Henry Fonda. Thank you.